Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at my top 5 things that you need to know before you embark on your big Australian working holiday visa, or what you want to go work in Australia. Being a Kiwi, I'm pretty lucky. We have a great arrangement set up between Australia and New Zealand. We can just go over there and work freely. As long as we're on our best behaviour and we don't have any sort of criminal convictions behind us, we can just come and go between Australia and New Zealand and work freely and get access to all the great benefits that Australia has, which a lot of Kiwis do. But there's a couple of key things that will help your success when you're going over to Australia. Just simple things that will help, if you're going over, especially a bit unsure about a few things. Very similar between both countries, but there is a couple of key things that are different, and things that you need to know when you're heading over. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is my top sort of 5 recommendations on things that will help you out on your journey in Australia. I've been living and working in Australia on and off for about 8 years now. Originally from New Zealand, but I've sort of lived all over the world and worked all over the place and whatnot. And it was always one of those sort of dreams. I know when I was in the army, it was one of the things, I'm leaving the army, I'm sick of it, I'm going to go work in the mines and make great money. So that was one of the things that we all used to talk about in the army. But and then I ended up shooting over there and working in the mines, and which a lot of army guys do when they chuck in the army, they head over there and do that sort of thing. But yeah, like I said, today we're going to be talking about the top 5 things that will help you out when you're starting on your working holiday visa in Australia. If you got some value from today's video, guys, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that like button. And if you want to see some more videos like this moving forward on this channel, we talk all about investing in business and finance and just investing in general, then hit that subscribe button and you'll be the first to know when the next video drops. With that said, guys, let's jump into today's video. Let's crack into it. Alright guys, so we're over on the ATO website, okay? This is a place to start when you want to apply for your tax file number, your TFN. If you're from New Zealand, same as your IRD number, or wherever you may be from in the world, whatever tax file system that you guys have. In Australia, they call it the TFN, or tax file number, okay? Super easy to apply for. Get on the website. It takes about 3 or 4 days to get it, but this is one of your number 1 priority jobs that you want to start off on, because it's very hard to get a job without this. And if you're wanting to get an ABN and start up your own business, or whatever you may want to do whilst you're in Australia, you need a TFN for that. Makes life so much easier getting a TFN, so this would be top of your list for jobs to do when you touch down. Get yourself sorted and then get onto this, because without this TFN, it's going to be very hard to get a job unless you're trying to work on the table, which I'm not saying that you should do, but this is a good way to go with getting a TFN. And you want to be on the good side of the ATO. You don't want to piss them off, so definitely get onto that as soon as possible. Okay, number 2 on the list would be you're going to need to open a bank account, okay? When I first touched down, I opened a bank account with Westpac, solely from the reason that I bank with them in New Zealand. I've been banking with Westpac as from a child, basically, so I understood the bank, and it's just who I naturally went with. There was no other sort of affiliation why I chose Westpac. There's many different good banks in Australia. You've got ANZ, you've got CommBank, all have their sort of pros and cons and different sort of fee structures. So do a little bit more research around that if you want. I'm just saying this is who I used. And one thing that I'm going to lead on to next is they ask, when you're opening up a bank account, they ask what super fund do you want? Are you currently with Super? And this is something I hadn't done much research around. I didn't really understand what Super was at the time. Super is a great system that they have set up in Australia, and it's the retirement sort of plan or scheme that they have set up. And there is literally thousands of different retirement schemes or plans or funds, whatever you want to call them, whatever we call them back in your own country. Say if you're from New Zealand, it's KiwiSaver. If you're from America, it's like the Roth IRA, sort of 401ks, I think you call them in America. So in Australia, it's called Super. And what it basically is, whoever you sort of get a job with, if everything's above board, that employer has to pay 9% of your salary into your Super. Okay, so it's definitely something you want to do a lot more research around, and really sort of, you don't have to do heaps research, but definitely try and get a bit of a gauge on a good super fund that you're happy to move forward with, especially if you're a bit younger. I definitely recommend this. And generally, most people, when they come into Australia, if they're getting on a working holiday visa, they're going to be under 30. You're going to have that power of compounding interest. So it's something you want to do a bit more research around rather than just signing up to 3 or 4 different super funds. Highly recommend you spend half an hour doing a bit more research around this. It's quite easy. This is going to lead me on to my 3rd topic. This is a great place to start when for considering a different super funds. Hostplus has many different sort of funds available through them. They're a great sort of Hostplus super provider in Australia. There's one particular fund I want to show you in particular that has the lowest fees across the board in Australia and good performance as well. And that is this fund here. It is the Hostplus Index Balance Fund, okay? So we're cruising down here. This is it. So this is the fee structure here. Like I said before, I'm going to leave the links in the description below to everything I talk about today, so you guys can do your own research around this as well. But this is the particular fund I'm talking about here, the Index Balance Fund, okay? So your total costs, there might be a little bit of management indirect costs with getting in and out of the fund, but the most you're going to get possibly slugged is 0.04%. So absolutely minimal fees with this. Whenever you're looking at doing any investing, especially whether it's in Super or KiwiSaver or any sort of managed fund, you always want to look at how much they're creaming off the top in fees. That's something I look at and put a lot of stock in, because this is going to affect your return over the long term if if they're creaming 1 or 2%. So this is something I put a lot of stock into, is trying to get a fund that charges minimal fees, and this is with the lowest fund in Australia at the moment. This may change, but at the moment this is currently the lowest fund as far as I'm aware. So, but like I said, do your own research around this. I'm just a random bloke talking about super and talking about all this sort of stuff, so definitely do your own research around that. But this is something that you want to do a little bit of research on, get a bit of an understanding on, and then just sign up to one and then stick with that. So if you're going from different jobs to different employees, which a lot of people do, backpackers, and when you come into Australia to work, you might work 2-3 different jobs or seasonal jobs. Make sure you just give them, this is my super, rather than opening up 3 or 4 different supers across 3 different things. You're going to be paying multiple fees, and at one stage, especially if you want to stay in Australia for a while, better if you start with this and just start with the one fund, and then you're happy with that, and that's the one that you use for however many jobs that you may be getting whilst you're in Australia. Okay, so number 3 on the list is Medicare. This is the medical system that they have in Australia. The medical system in Australia is great, okay? Very similar to New Zealand. And it's free, essentially, especially if you sign up to Medicare. You get a lot of rebates and things through Medicare. I honestly don't use Medicare too much. I'm a pretty healthy sort of a fella, so I haven't had to use it a hell of a lot. A couple of times I've hurt myself and whatnot and just go in, and everything's pretty much covered. And that's predominantly because I'm a Kiwi. I'm not too sure how it works if you're American or something like that, but being a Kiwi, you get some pretty good sort of benefits here. And I imagine if you're on a working visa, you're probably open to the same sort of benefits as well. But this is something that you'll get asked for, especially from your employer as well. Medicare numbers, or always wanting for a proof of ID as well, depending on different things. This is a great place to start. So this takes maybe a couple of weeks to get. So this is another job you want to sort of put pretty top on your list in the first few days. Apply for a Medicare card as well. And also, if you're going for an Australian driver's license, this is another thing that they'll need for another form of ID. So definitely, I recommend getting onto the Medicare system. But like I say, I don't know the ins and the outs of all the Medicare and how it all works, but just definitely something you want to sign up for. Fourthly on the list is you're going to need a job, okay? Australia is expensive. And if you're coming here to work, you probably don't have bags of cash, so it's a great place to start. Even start doing this prior to going to Australia. You can start, earmarking some different jobs that may be of interest to you. Depending on whatever sector you're in or whatever you work, your sort of history that you have, get on there and apply for as many jobs as possible that sort of suit your area of expertise, so that you hit the ground running. You maybe even have some interviews lined up, so that you're not waiting 6, 8, maybe 2-3 months before you actually get a job or interview. I had a few jobs sort of earmarked. I had one lined up, working at New South Wales in Jindabyne, up at the ski hill Thredbo, working as a snowboard instructor. So that's something that I had lined up, but I still had a couple of months sort of up my sleeve before that started, which I have found another job. I didn't find any dramas finding work in Australia. If you're keen to find work, there's plenty of work in Australia, and pretty good paying work as well. Especially coming from New Zealand, at the time I think it was on $16, and I was like, yeah, boys, on the $16. $16 an hour, I was pretty happy. Literally, the minute I touched down, I'd been there for a week or two, got a job paying $25 an hour, and I was wrapped. I was stoked. So definitely there is, there's definitely some good high-paying jobs in Australia, let's say, and you don't need minimal sort of qualifications. A lot of Kiwis like to go over there, work in the mines, which it is a little bit harder to get into. I've done a lot of mining sort of work myself. It does take a little while to get into that, to get the right tickets you need, depending on which field you want to work in. But there is some very entry-level jobs out there. But it is hot. It's hot, sticky work, and there's its own sort of dramas around all that. But that's for another video. Today we're just looking at the key things that you need to do in order to be able to work in Australia. So that's one place I would start, is seek.com.au. Like I said, start before you even touch down in Australia. Lastly on the list, we're going to have a quick look at gumtree.com.au. This is a great place to start if you're wanting to buy a vehicle whilst you're in Australia. Australia is massive, and it's pretty handy to have a vehicle. I was quite lucky when I first went to Australia. I travelled over there with my brother, so we managed to split the costs, and we bought a vehicle together, and it made things a lot cheaper. Everything was sort of split down the middle. Food and accommodation, everything was split down the middle. But if you're there by yourself, obviously you're going to have a lot more costs as well, especially if you outright buying a vehicle. We bought a couple of cheap vehicles when we were first there. I think the first vehicle we bought was like $750 for an old Ford Falcon. Which was great, got us around for a bit. But definitely, this is a great place to start, if you're wanting to buy a cheap vehicle. And also a place to look for accommodation if you're wanting to look for flatmates or live in a shared house or something along those sort of lines. Great place to start and that sort of thing. Bear in mind, though, Gumtree is a bit scammy. There are a few scammers in Australia. Australia is full of convicts. That's the history of Australia. And there is a lot of that scammy sort of stuff going on, especially in New Zealand. You have Trade Me. I find Trade Me a lot more safe and a lot more reliable than the likes of Gumtree. So a little air of caution around Gumtree in that regard. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up there, guys. If you've got any questions on anything I covered off on there, or something a bit unsure of, drop it in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you out. With that said, guys, hope you got some value from it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. I hope you got some value there from my top 5 key things that help you out when you're coming to Australia and you're working on your big OE or whatever it may be that you're doing, or if you're just a Kiwi wanting to leave New Zealand and go earn the big dollars. If you got some value from everything I covered off on today, we much appreciate it if you hit that like button. And if you want to see some more videos like this moving forward, then hit that subscribe button and you'll be the first to know. If you've got any questions or anything I sort of covered off today, drop it in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you out. It can be a little bit daunting when you're sort of first taking that leap, moving to Australia. No matter where you're from in the world, even if it's just from New Zealand or Canada or America or whatever sort of country that you're home, originally from, it is a big step, definitely moving to Australia, and it's a dream for a lot of people, and it's for good reason. Australia's a great country. They call it the lucky country. And there is some good money to be made in Australia, but you've got to work hard for it. And these simple things that I've sort of helped you out here, this should sort of put you in a good position on your journey in Australia. With that said, guys, enjoy the rest of your day and safe travels out there. We'll catch you in the next video.